Hello. This is week 74 in Intuitive Momentum Fitness, and a couple minutes late as I was last week. Just packed weeks with lots of work, lots of good stuff happening, but not as much margin or downtime in my schedule as would be ideal for me at the moment, but everything is going well, and I'm excited to be here with you guys again. And I love the energy of all the posts and the things you guys are sharing, and the conversations that are happening. And so I am excited to just continue to nurture and foster the environment that we have, and I know that all of you will contribute to that and assist with that, bringing your beautiful empathic hearts to the experience and the environment that we have here. So yeah, my days have been busy, my weeks have been busy, and so I haven't posted a day or two ahead of time like I've been intending to, because those days are just so packed that I am not able to give the question or the subject the attention that I would like to. However, I woke up earlier than I planned on this morning, and I was able to do some thinking and processing, and wanted to share this with you. And I've been thinking about this. It seems like it's a theme. I've been noticing this more, and kind of thinking about this process more of how does a traumatized empath move from that place of feeling very vulnerable, very powerless, very overwhelmed, having to, or not necessarily having to, but choosing to walk on eggshells to keep themselves and others safe in that way. Look out for danger, kind of watch out for everyone else, caretake for everyone else, and be the resource, the sounding board for everyone else in their life, in their experience. How do you go from that position, that way of being, to being empowered, taking up space, choosing the things that you wish to include in your life, wish to experience in your life? That's quite a contrast, and it can be very uncomfortable. So sometimes the things that you fear are the things that you have to experience in order to get to a healthier place, a more healed, whole, powerful place. So I was reflecting on that because several people close to me are experiencing this process, and it's becoming clearer to me. And so as I was thinking about it this morning, I wanted to jot this down, so I did, and made these 4 memes and shared it in the group. So I'm just going to read through this again, and then talk about this a little bit more. But Empaths are so other focused and accommodating, and I'm talking about traumatized empaths, first out of survival mode. And in survival mode, this is a automatic response. This is not a choice, but it is something that your old brain, not your conscious mind, but your unconscious mind, chooses for you. So whether your response to trauma is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that's up to your unconscious old brain, your primal brain, to choose based on the circumstances, based on what seems safest, most appropriate, most likely for you to survive. And I believe that that most of us in here are probably major on the flight, freeze, or fawn. My go-to early on was freeze, and then later on it was fawn, because I found out I could be helpful and experience some safety and belonging through that. But it is like the empath is very aware of their outer environment and the emotions of the people around them, and use their ability to read those emotions as a survival skill. So empaths are so other focused and accommodating, first out of survival mode, then habit. It's difficult for them to know or experience their own desires. Empaths have survived through true danger and harm. So knowing and experiencing their desires feels both scary and narcissistic. If you're empathic, then knowing your own desires and then choosing to live that is scary, because first you have to become visible. You have to make your presence a reality in this world. Take up some space, and then it feels narcissistic because you're actually caring what you think. You are in tune with yourself, and so most of the time you've spent your life being in tune with everyone else and not in tune with yourself. So it feels scary because the more you're in tune with yourself, the less your senses are available and primed to tune into everyone else. So you feel like you're maybe missing something, you're not paying attention, you might be bumbling into danger. That's what it feels like in the survival mode perspective. And it feels like you're becoming narcissistic by being very in tune with you. So we'll keep talking more about that. So going on to the second slide, but having any personal power, such as your sovereignty, your personal agency, requires leaving survival habits, being less other-focused, and actually knowing and experiencing personal desires. Survival depended on not having personal desires or preferences in order to accommodate and placate the dangerous and overwhelming personalities around you. And I'm switching this from third person to, is that second person talking to you? Thriving and expansion requires the empath step out of the game of staying small and accommodating by becoming big and visible instead. These massive shifts are necessary to answer the seemingly simple questions: what do I want, and am I worthy of having it? This is extremely courageous for the traumatized empath. It is helpful and necessary for this process to be slow and new habits to be small. Starting with super simple habits like daily walking, speaking up for needs like committing to be gluten-free or whatever it is, or taking up space in the schedule for self-care can end up life-changing. So asking the simple questions like, what do I want? And am I worthy of having it? Your attention has to be off of everyone else long enough for you to know your own needs, your own desires, your own preferences. And having spent life in survival mode in that way, it feels selfish to be thinking that much of yourself, because most empaths, traumatized empaths, especially if you've been within religion and experienced the trauma that kind of turned you into the empath, then you have been taught, it's been drilled into you that you need to put everyone else first. On top of the fact that that was already your mode. So you were looking often for even more ways to put yourself last and to put everyone else first. And there's a complete inequality between the people that are in your life and you. The way that you sacrifice yourself to take care of everyone else. So asking what you want sounds audacious. And then asking if you're worthy of it, there's all kinds of feelings that can come up. So logically, you have to agree that everyone has value. And if everyone has value, then I have value. You have value. But for some reason, that hasn't been most of our experience in the traumatized state. So the importance within survival mode of making sure that everyone else is taken care of first translates somehow to everyone else has more value than me. And that logically we know isn't true, but practically, essentially, we continue often to live out that reality, that everyone else is more important, that everyone else has more value. And so if you're getting inundated with messages and requests and things, I know this is like something that I struggle with, is if I know that someone has messaged me on email, and I have a couple of email accounts, and then, or messenger, or text message, or voicemail, it's almost like somehow they know that I'm aware of their message, and they are hurt that I'm not responding to them because I'm responding to other things first. And it doesn't make any logical sense. It's not even reasonable. But there's still kind of a panic or anxiety at times, not all the time, but and more so in the past. But there can be this level of pressure to respond immediately to everyone when it's not just all the other people that need your attention. You need your attention. And so let's say on, between email and Messenger and WhatsApp and Instagram and text and voicemail, you've got 10 different people waiting for your response. What if the answer is for you to not answer any of them in this moment, but check in with yourself and say, what do I need? I'm the only person living in my reality, living in my body, and yet because of trauma and because of survival mode and because those things have happened for so many years that there are all these habits, I forget to check in with myself and to take a minute, take a breath to figure out what is the best thing for me in this moment, and to do that, and then make a game plan and all of that. It doesn't really matter what it is. It seems like everything goes a little bit better if I take even just 5 minutes and think about something, or just kind of let it marinate in the back of my mind, not even like intentionally thinking about it or giving a lot of thought to it, but just letting it sit for a second. I can't remember who it was, but I'm following so many psychologists on Instagram. One of them made this meme that I saw a while back saying, "Let me get back to you" is one of the most powerful tools for the recovering people pleaser. Something like that. Because we can be so tuned or primed to respond and placate and appease and accommodate that we don't actually take a second and tune in with what feels best in this moment. So going from being in the trauma, being in survival mode, taking care of everyone else, prioritizing everyone else, accommodating everyone else, to being a powerful force in the world, being everything that lights you up, that sets you on fire, that makes you come alive, where you take up space, you speak your needs, you can voice your desires and your preferences and not feel shame or embarrassment, where you take the time for yourself that you need. You might even block out empty spaces in your calendar and say that you're busy because you need that for you. And so you're taking up space, you're speaking up for your needs, you're prioritizing yourself. What does that journey look like from the traumatized state, prioritizing everyone else, to the empowered state where you are taking up your space, you're speaking your needs, using your voice, taking up time? That's quite a powerful transformation, quite a magnificent transformation. but it requires a lot of facing your fears and your insecurities and your nightmares. As you move out of this state of like always having a pulse on everything that's going on, being in tune with everyone else, to shifting your attention to you a little bit more, you are going to have that sense of loss of information, loss of where am I at? How am I doing? Where is the danger potential coming from? It's almost like you're in a watchtower, the traumatized empathic watchtower, where you're scanning everything all the time to see what's going on, see where danger might be coming from, and you're choosing to lower the blinds and turn on a lamp and focus inside the tower. And that's scary because you're not paying attention to what's outside, and so your imagination can run wild, your survival mechanisms can start going off, start imagining all sorts of danger happening or getting close or building up. And part of the process is choosing I am safe. Not ensuring that you are safe, but choosing whatever happens, I know I can handle it. Whatever happens, I've got my back. Whatever happens, everything's going to work out. It's a kind of to the survival mind, it feels crazy, but this is that shift from just responding to reality to creating reality. And it's not a transformation as much as it is an activation. You've always been that powerful, but you thought you were responding to reality. So some of you who have taken big steps, like whether it's like initiating a divorce process or moving out of an abusive situation, like when I went into town without my dad knowing or giving permission or praying protection over me for the first time in my life at 22, almost 22, and coming home with the Marine packet and a follow-up appointment with the Marine recruiter, like that was a moment that I wasn't turning back from. That was an inciting moment that initiated events that were massive in my reality. So those moments were really scary, really overwhelming, really terrifying. And it was also moving toward personal power. It was more uncomfortable than it had been. It was more stressful than it had been. It was more chaotic than it had been. But I was moving toward the ultimate destination of personal power and sovereignty and autonomy and agency, personal agency. So it feels like chaos at first, and it feels like you're the one doing it. You are causing the discomfort and the craziness. And you're not. You're just no longer being pushed around by it. So it's like, it's sort of like a palm tree. If a palm tree bends with the wind, there's different, you can apply to different things. So a lot of times it is good to be able to flex. And for certain moments of that survival period, I believe that we were always doing the best we could in the situation that we were in with the circumstances as they were. So there's no faulting the former us. But there comes a time when we're ready to stand firm, we're ready to hold fast, we're ready to claim the power that we actually have. And so it's like the palm tree that's moving around, becoming petrified, becoming stone, and no longer swaying with the wind. And I love the image of powerful things that are able to stand firm, like the powerful oak tree, or a stone tower, or a mountainside that is able to be buffeted and beat down by the storms, and it doesn't move. So it really is like a alchemical change that happens within us to go from one thing for our best interest to become another thing for our best interest. So before we had the tools to stand up for ourselves and to own our power, we had one formula, one way of being that was helpful for us and that helped us survive. And then now it's time for something new, to stand strong, to stand firm, to not give in, to not yield. So all those are powerful things, very helpful things. So understanding that process, understanding the change, understanding all the insecurities and overwhelm that's going to happen as you move from a disempowered state to an empowered state is really vital. Because it feels scary and overwhelming, but things are actually getting better, and you're becoming stronger in ways that you can't even know. And I don't believe that I even know, it's been 19 years in the process for me, and all the way along, I'm learning more about what I did and what I'm doing, and I know that there's more that I'm going to be learning along the way. And I plan on learning for the rest of my life, my existence here. That's one way that I'm committing to youthfulness, is always being open to learning and growing and expanding. So what I commented in here with the memes that I shared, where do you find yourself in this process? Just becoming aware of your value and personal power? Actually knowing your preferences? Speaking up and making changes to experience them? Or establishing habits? So this is the process as I see it. So first, you're in survival mode. Everyone else is way more important than you are. You get the scraps of what's left over if you can. That's the most important thing to survive. Surviving is the most important thing. How you survive is not that important. And then you start becoming aware, even just the logical thought, if everyone has value, that means I must also have value. If this other person that I'm always accommodating gets to have their preferences, I must also be able to have my preferences. If they always get to look at a situation and decide for themselves what's right and what they are going to pursue, then I must also be able to look at a situation and discern what's right and what I'm going to pursue. And so then there's like this understanding, there's an awareness that I must have value, I must have personal power and agency. And then what are my preferences? Is if everyone gets to have their preferences, if everyone gets to choose their desires, then what are mine? What do I actually want? Side note here, if you've ever seen Runaway Bride, that's kind of what that's all about. It's really fun movie and a good visual of someone who didn't know who she was and what she wanted and didn't know her preferences and was in survival mode in the sense that she just was happy to become, or seemed to be happy to become, whatever someone else wanted her to be or thought of her as. So she matched them in whatever she thought their projection of her was. And it took her a really long time to figure out who she actually was. But it's so important for us to know who we are and show up as that person. So then once we know that, once we know our preferences, are we able to speak up for those preferences and actually enact changes in order to experience your preferences? And then once you are able to speak up for yourself and make changes to experience a reality that you wish to experience, how do you establish new habits and way of being so that your life involves the things that you feel bring you the most joy, bring you the most peace, and bring you the most pleasure? I think that's something else that empaths, trauma survivors suffer from, is feeling the need to suffer and feeling an aversion to pleasure and to joy. It's like there's too much, it's like I must suffer until no one else is suffering. That's something that my spiritual mentor and empath expert Amanda Flaker talks about all the time, is the belief I must suffer until no one else is suffering. And that is the way that empaths function in survival mode. If there's something going wrong, then I must give all my energy and attention and time to helping that be right so that everyone else can feel okay and then I can feel okay. And that's not how life works, because everyone is choosing their own reality. The narcissist, in the extreme sense of narcissism, their needs are the most important needs in their reality. And they are able to speak to those needs so well that almost everyone around them believes that their needs are the most important needs also. It's like amazing how that works. They just decide it's more than just a decision, but it's like somehow they end up in this place where they are choosing that what they want is the most important thing, and that everyone else should also agree with that, and then everyone does agree with that because they're so persuasive. So how can you not necessarily do that, but at least get to the point of knowing your own desires and your own preferences to the point where they are the most important to you, and you take ownership of that. And you're like, hey, I want to experience joy in this way. I want to experience pleasure in this way. And I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to be in that moment. I'm going to savor it. This is what I choose, and I'm going to own that decision. And then finally, establishing habits around it so that, my mind's just jumping in a whole bunch of different places right now, but something that I experienced when I moved from Oregon, my home state, where I'd lived all my life. I'd lived in various places, and I thought that was enough. I thought it was enough to live in different parts of Oregon and experience different things. And, sometimes I was close to certain family members, and other times I was closer to other family members, more in proximity. As well as emotionally, but I'm talking about proximity. So, but like different places in Oregon, and then I ended up taking that job in Michigan, and I didn't realize how much of a culture shock that it was going to be to live in another part of the U.S. And it's just like so many things were so different, and the mindsets of the people there were so different, and the values of the people there were so different. The values of the fitness culture, which I'd been already working in for 7 years at that point, I think. What about maybe 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. So I'd been in fitness for 9 years, but always in Oregon. And then I went to Michigan and worked at this fitness facility, and it was weird because like all the fitness people, like the instructors and the gym members, class participants, all prioritized different things from what I experienced before. And it was kind of like this, they were all the same over there. Where I had come from, it was very similar. And so it was like a whole different fitness culture too. So like everything was different. And yeah, I didn't know that I could be homesick within the US just for, a sense of familiarity. So that those 2 years was really a good experience because there was nothing familiar to me, and I had to kind of reestablish who I was in the world and how I interacted with everyone around me. Not completely from scratch, but it just like felt like I had lost my place because I didn't have my bearings like I had previously. Things were not like when you expect something to be there and it is there, you have a sense of knowing where you are. When you expect something to be there and it's not there, or you don't expect something to be there and it is there, that's like, it kind of makes you feel a little crazy. So I went through that for almost 2 years there before coming back. And something I noticed when I came back was, even though I was coming back to a place that was familiar, I was so different. And so even with my family and with people that I knew, friends and other things, situations where I had a hard time setting boundaries or speaking up for myself or speaking my preferences, I didn't have a problem with that anymore. It was like, it was night and day, and it was such a contrast because I was coming back to a place I was familiar with this time, and yet I was so different. And I felt stronger, and I felt like I didn't have a problem speaking up for myself and saying what I needed in certain situations where I knew 2 years before I had struggled with that. So yeah, it was amazing. So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking of when I'm talking about this final stage of establishing habits, like where you're anchoring in a new way of being, where you're aware of the contrast between where you are now and where you were in the past, but you're no longer fighting to be in the new place and resisting with effort the old place of the old place of being, the old state of being. So so kind of like think about where you are in this trajectory, and not as a progress or kind of to see who's ahead or to see how you measure up or anything, but just to kind of like get a sense of where you are, what your surroundings are, where you're headed, how far you've come so far, all of that. So I want to get to all of your comments, but Lori says this is such good information. Good. I'm glad it's helpful, Lori. Any questions any of you have, you're more than welcome to just comment here as we go. Susie says regional culture shock is a real thing. Yep. When you leave and come back. Yep. I've done West Coast to East Coast and back. Yeah. Yep. It's amazing. Such different cultures. West Coast to Midwest to East Coast, and then of course, within all those spaces, like, the difference between the attitudes within Grand Rapids was different from the little tiny rural town of Fremont where I was, but then Fremont was like the biggest hub in its little area, and there was all these little tiny towns around it. So yeah, so it's some really interesting things. Like when people would find out that I was from Oregon, I was surprised at the things they would ask me, or the comments that they would make, or the reactions that they would have. It wasn't at all what I expected. I expected them to be intrigued, but often they were just, why are you here? And most of them, a lot of the ones that had asked me that, some of them had never been outside their own county. And, no one in their family had been outside their own county, like for generations. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So, yeah, just you when you meet someone and the things that they ask and the way they react to you, like it sheds light on their values, and so it was very illuminating to have those conversations and to meet those people and just like open up my world, just to live in little small town Fremont, Michigan, for a couple of years. And so just imagine what it'd be if I kept on living in different places, and experiencing different cultures and subcultures. So yeah, there's so much to learn, absorb, so many ways to have our perspective expanded. Lori says, I had such a hard time asking for something earlier this week, even though I knew, let's see, messages jump around sometimes. Oh man. Okay, Lori says, I had a hard time asking for something earlier this week, even though I knew the person would be fine with it. It still felt like he'd say no and think I was an idiot for even asking. Yeah, it's amazing how powerful that is. The past experiences that we have, they can be so strong, and that's our old brain, our primal brain, our unconscious trying to keep us safe, and it doesn't have the logic or reasoning that our conscious mind has, and it doesn't even have the sensory abilities that the heart has. And so all it can sense is danger, danger, danger because of what we've experienced in the past. And yeah, it could be so real, so brutal in that moment. I actually had someone text me today, and all he said was, I think it was, tonight is canceled. And I'd just been watching some messages on Facebook Messenger about getting together for some pickleball. Or no, he said they canceled pickleball tonight. And so after I was just seeing these messages, and so then I get this text from him saying they canceled pickleball tonight, and I was like, wait, so I just watched these messages, and it sounds like we've got like 5 people that want to play at least. I said I bet we could get at least 8, and then he sends me a text that says they canceled pickleball tonight. It's like, I didn't see that in the main group. Does that mean that they don't want me to show up, or what? I just like immediately jumped to all these false conclusions, and I was like having a mini panic attack because like, wait a minute, like why can't I show up? Are they trying to cut me out of it? Like all the insecurities, and then it was like a couple hours later, because I texted him asking for clarification, and he texts back later on, and by that point I kind of remembered, hey, we'd actually had a conversation with this new couple that was visiting, and they were talking about maybe showing up tonight, and that's what he meant. He hadn't even seen the other messages in our messenger group, and so because he assumed that I knew what he was talking about, and he didn't give any context to what he was saying, my mind just filled in all the details to the worst possible scenario. And so it is, yeah, our survival brain is very skilled at survival, but not great at figuring everything else out. So that's super tricky. And I knew that like I needed to like just slow down and to take deep breaths, and to, think, what could be, what's a reasonable, rational way of moving through this situation that's not triggered by trauma. So that was amazing, because I knew it was for a purpose, but it was like still I couldn't, logic myself out of the full body response that I had to it. So Susie says it does help. That said, at work I have do not disturb on, and some people still try to message me. Yep. So yeah, some people don't pay attention to what's in front of them. All right. So, I'm gonna dive into the comments here, and we've got a couple of comments, so a few comments, starting with Danielle. I'm still worried about helping my toxic person. I know I don't need to, and better, I shouldn't help him because my empathy has enabled him. So saying no, though I want to help, is so against my nature. But I'm learning to see that I am helping, but in a different, more healthy way. Doing this is also helping me see and accept that I do have preferences, and I need to not be afraid to express them and go so far as to make a protective boundary around them. I was always giving in to his every desire, no matter how much it was uncomfortable for me, because I wanted to help, wanted to be good. But I was totally lost in this process. I'm slowly asking myself, what do I like? What do I want? And getting past feeling uncomfortable owning it. Yes, absolutely. So it is safer to be more invisible. It's safer to not have preferences. It's safer to go with what someone else wants, because we feel like that may be a way to guarantee love and care, to not have many needs, to not have many desires, to not take up much space, all those things. So really, it feels like a massive risk to show up fully, to be big, to take up space, to take up time, to use your voice, to be seen and heard. And I love that you highlighted that you were always giving in his desire no matter how much it was uncomfortable, because I wanted to help, I wanted to be good. And that piece of wanting to be good is massive. It is amazing how I feel like that is a very integral part of the empath narcissist relationship, because that is how the narcissist gets so much cooperation. Like the empath is usually very willing to cooperate to start with, but then narcissist kind of is able to have their true behavior stay camouflaged behind pointing out where the empath could be falling short or isn't giving as much as they would like them to give. You know, like, if you really loved me, you would do this. Or, I don't feel like you care because you're not helping me with this, or you're not doing this for me, or whatever. And it really is that deep desire, and I feel like there's a better word, but there's almost a desperate need to be good and to prove goodness. And possibly because there are so many accusations leveled against the empath, to get them to behave in ways that they, might not stand for, be treated in ways they might not stand for otherwise. So, yeah, there's a lot there, and I don't know if it's all going to come clearly to me in this moment, but yeah, the desire to be good. In some of the spiritual circles that I'm in, some of the teachers have highlighted the positive aspects, the benefits of characters. I'm trying to think of the right words. Words are kind of slipping me right now, but stereotypes, typecasting, that sort of thing, that concept that are seen as negative. And so, like, one of them lists the benefits and the positives of the whore, for example. Like, there's the I'm for some reason I'm just drawing a blank on so many words, but there's like the whore versus the virgin, and the virgin is seen as virtuous, and the whore is seen as promiscuous and untethered and undisciplined and all of that. But there are really powerful positives to the whore, and I can share those later if I remember it, if anyone is interested. But it's like in the big scheme of things, when you look at when you remember that you are love and you come from love and that you return to love, then you remember that there is no good and there's no bad, there just is. It's like, animals fight each other, certain animals eat other animals, some animals eat plants, plants eat animals, but it's nature. Sometimes storms come through and destroy things. Sometimes the sun comes up and it helps things grow. The rain comes down and destroys things sometimes. The rain comes down and gives life. And so it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And so the more that we can see ourselves that way and not play the game of trying to be good and trying not to be bad, but really honoring who we are and honoring our preferences, then we can get out of a space where we are being controlled by someone who accuses us of not being good. Because that's not the goal anymore, and we don't care. Just like getting this earring, it's kind of comical because someone could see my post about getting my ear pierced and think, wow, this guy needs to make a big production of everything that he does. Not realizing that for me and my background, if you didn't really understand my background, every single thing that I did was analyzed and criticized and critiqued. And so anything that I do that's different than I've been doing feels really under a spotlight. And so I will share my experience. And I don't need to, but I feel like it makes me feel better to do that. So I end up doing that. But yeah, and I feel like I'm very verbose today because I'm talking much longer than I meant to. So let me jump to Susie. Thanks, Danielle, for sharing that. Susie says, a small thing that comes to mind is figuring out that it's okay to make a fuss, to complain, to say something is wrong or unsatisfactory, to say something crosses a line. You can do so calmly, constructively, politely, and assertively. It does not lead to negative consequences. Yes, especially when you own it, then there's less negative consequences. There will not be retribution for speaking up. In fact, good things often come of it. The don't make a fuss was a behavior of someone in my life who needed to do that for their own survival. It was taught to me to protect me, and to this day, this person instinctually will try to stop me. Lately, I try to model for them that speaking up is safe, okay, and results in beneficial outcomes. So that's a success. Yeah, so that's a very unique situation, Susie, where someone else who was in trauma and still in survival mode is training you to live that way. So yeah, that's a very good insight, very good highlight. Where I still struggle is not saying sorry for everything, because I assume that what I'm doing or asking for is annoying or inconvenient. Even just asking a clerk for something in a store, I so relate to that. Also, when someone is upset around me, another challenge is assuming I am the cause of their mood, or realizing that there can be times when someone is upset with me over a situation that I'm not responsible for or didn't cause, and that I don't need to take on or apologize for those things. Such as when a team process or operation goes sideways at work. I guess there's a theme in that of realizing you don't need to fix, soothe, or take on anyone else's upset or concerns. And that's totally accurate, really well said. I've been practicing that myself, allowing people to be upset, allowing them to disagree, allowing them to be sad or angry, and having it not be my responsibility to make them feel better or to change their situation. And then Willow just had a comment about empaths and highly sensitive, and being empathic does mean more than just feeling other people's emotions, because it is more of a paranormal skill set, paranormal ability, where some people are actual physical empaths, where they will get a stomach ache because someone else has a stomach ache, and it'll take them a second to realize it's not their own stomach ache. They're getting a stomach ache because someone else has one, or a headache, or whatever it is. And then other people are emotional empaths. And I'm much more like that, where someone is very angry, and maybe it's not super visible, so I'm not paying attention to the fact. And then I'm feeling like really chaotic and feeling these anger emotions. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Why am I feeling like this? And it turns out it's not me, actually. It's someone else, and I'm picking up on it. So being an empath is more than being able to empathize or feel other people's emotions. It includes that. And then people are highly sensitive and have not experienced trauma, but a lot of times empaths are made through trauma, or the empathic ability is intensified through trauma. So there's a lot of different things with that, and it can be confusing, but it's helpful to know in this situation, these circles, I'm mostly talking about traumatized empaths, people that are just very wired and in tune and tuned to caretake for everyone else, because they're sensitive enough in their empathy to know how everyone's feeling and know how to meet those needs. They feel responsible because they know. So, and then Manavit says, this is really interesting. It feels like since 2015, I've come so far in establishing habits for thriving, even moving across country and buying a house, uprooting everything. And at the same time, I still have to remind myself of my own value. In a few days, I'm flying to Italy for a trial week at a prospective job. That's super cool. They are paying for my ticket. They invited me to come. Both my mother and my best friend have reminded me that I have been called a legend in this particular field and role, and I'm very overqualified for it. It's still fun, so not a problem for me. And I have no recollection of either of those things, of being a legend and very overqualified. I guess I work on reminding myself of them. It's very strange, Kyler. So yeah, that's fantastic. Congratulations on this opportunity. And yeah, really own it. it can be challenging to go. This is like the not quite this extreme, but like pauper to king. How does a pauper become the prince or the king when you're begging for scraps in one situation, and then you have more than enough in another situation? It feels overwhelming, and you feel unworthy of it. But massive mindset shift. The invitation is for a massive mindset shift. So keep reminding yourself of all of the amazing things that you've done, your creativity, the things that come up for you in really beautiful ways. So congratulations. Please keep us posted on this, and would love to hear the other side of the story. So Anne says, I watched a very interesting video yesterday about INFJs that fits right in with what you're describing. So I believe that there's a lot of INFJs in this group. I am one. My mom is one. And then I think there's a lot of other personalities that are very similar, very close to that. So so I think INFJs are often empaths. Probably attract traumatic situations, as weird as that is to say, but it does seem like certain personalities end up in certain roles more often than others. So thanks for hanging with me. If this prompted anything and you'd like to carry on the conversation, please comment. And wherever you find this video, on YouTube or in the group, or on the live or on the link, or if you just want to post in the group and start a general conversation about an aspect of this, that would be amazing. So hope you guys are well. Love you, and have a great week.